In a related report, a former Senate Leader Ali Ndume has urged President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to suspend the implementation of the newly enacted reforms laws, citing allegations that they were altered after legislative approval. Ndume, in a statement on Wednesday from Abuja, called for the establishment of an ad hoc committee to investigate claims that the laws were modified after passing through the National Assembly. The call comes amid protests from opposition figures and civil society groups, including the Nigerian Bar Association, which had also demanded a full, transparent inquiry. Ndume warned that implementing the reform while the allegations remain unresolved could erode public trust and undermine the legitimacy of the lawmaking process. Joining us now for a conversation on this is Femi Onakanren, and of course he's an economist and he joins us from Lagos. Femi, you are welcome this afternoon. All right, Femi, back to my question regarding the Nigerian Bar Association and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, who are calling for the immediate suspension of the Tax Reforms Act. Now, my question to you was, what specific procedural or legal irregularities do they allege occurred in the enactment, and on what evidence, if you might?
From what we've gathered thus far, the allegation made by one of the honorable members of the House was that what was gazetted and presented to the public is different from what the chambers had passed, the upper and lower houses had passed on to the president for assent. Mr. Taiwo Edele has spoken about it, and he said he is not aware of any such alteration. And if said alteration is valid and genuine, the House of Rep itself has instituted an ad hoc committee to look into the matter and investigate the alleged alterations, as it were. Now, the challenge that some of us have with this recent development is that there is a conviction before a trial. Some of the rhetoric that is going around, some of the narrative that's going around is implies draconian authority. Some are saying that the poor are going to get taxed more, it's going to be tougher on the economy, on people. And these are all misleading narratives. I mean, I am not a politician, but if we're going to talk in terms of economic baseline, the framework of the tax reform is actually quite commendable. It releases more funds for small businesses, for low-income earners, for salary earners, and it also creates the opportunity for accountability and transparency. The harmonization of different tax positions, an example is the VAT situation that we have in terms of multiple taxation across different platforms. And the harmonization actually releases more funds to businesses, and to individuals as well. So in terms of commendable output from the reform, I mean, they are quite clear. However, we must not discountenance the allegations raised. What the NBA is saying is that if indeed there have been alterations to what had been, presented or agreed upon approved by the upper and lower chambers for the president to assent to, if there's a difference between that and the gazetted presented document, then it stands to reason that the law cannot begin operation. It cannot begin to be processed, and the January 1st, 2026 adoption period becomes, suspect. It cannot be allowed to go forward. That's the NBA's position. But what has been presented as the differences, those are the challenges that we are having, because it becomes very curious. This law had been passed, I think, March by the Senate, May by the House of Rep, and the assent by the president was in, I think, June. So given the timeline, and then we have a couple of days to the commencement of implementation, and we're having this rabble-rousing situation and all the confusion and politicization, as it were, of something that should be a beneficial framework for the people and the economy is quite is concerning.
Now, there are some things in the reason, of course, for the suspension that were mentioned that are deemed perhaps unconstitutional. Atiku described the executive's action as inserting cohesive enforcement powers and increasing financial burdens on citizens. Can you detail which provisions are claimed to be unconstitutional and how they would affect ordinary Nigerians, businesses, as well as investors?
In my estimation, and from all we've seen and analyzed regarding the document, there is I really cannot point to, unless former Vice President Atiku indicates exactly where those concerns stem from in the document. The part about coercive, exertion and mandatory powers of arrest are a bit extensive. What there is, I mean, that is rather a stretch. What the law says is the application of punitive measures, which in various instances, right, across regulatory bodies and monitoring bodies all over the world, I mean, they are there, they are part of the framework. Those positions are also bound by the law and can be challenged in court. So they are not like fixed and firm and absolute. It's like you have a surcharge. The CBN indicates a surcharge on your account, and you feel that you've been disproportionately charged, right, by your bank or by the processing outfit. You can challenge that, and it does not mean that it is binding on you. You have no leeway around it. The other allegation regarding impoverishing people, we should not be taxing people that are poor and all. I think it's also just a politicization of available reality.
All right,
the truth we have is that, pardon?
Yeah, especially because you are getting into the political side of things. My final question to you in 30 seconds. The executives, of course, assert that the tax reform aims to simplify the system and reduce taxes across federal, state, and local levels. Can you explain the claim structure change, please? Okay, so what is being done is the harmonization of the different tax frameworks that we have. Previously, we have like a schedule of 63 tax frameworks that have been harmonized to 10, which makes it easier and simpler for compliance by the taxpayers. There are no hidden charges, and nuisance taxes are also being identified and eliminated. So all in all, the reform bill as it is, it's a clean position for the country to start in terms of harmonizing our tax position, widening the tax net, reducing the burden of tax, especially from informal sources and informal channels that take from people at the low end, affecting the standard of living and available disposable income. Thank you so much for your time, Femi.